Hello and welcome to this video. I am Swarnendu. In this video, we will be learning how to deploy .NET Core Web Application into Azure using Azure App Service. First, we will understand what is Azure App Service. Next, we will be creating App Service Web App in the Azure portal. After that, we will be discussing about some important features of Azure App Service. And at last, we will be deploying .NET Core Web Application in the Azure from the Visual Studio. First, we need to understand what is Azure App Service. Azure App Service enables us to build and host web application, mobile backends, RESTful APIs in the programming language of our choice without managing any infrastructure. Because Azure App Service is a fully managed platform for building, deploying and scaling of our applications. Azure App Service is a fully managed because it's a platform as a service. That is a managed hosting environment. That means Microsoft Azure manages operating system security patch, application runtime, language framework stack for us. So platform and infrastructure related all the things are taken care by the Microsoft Azure. Azure App Service offers auto scaling and high availability. It also supports both Windows and the Linux operating system. It also provides us one feature for the automated deployment, CI/CD pipeline from GitHub, Azure DevOps or any kind of Git repo. Using Azure App Service, we can deploy this type of application. App Service Web App, that is web application. App Service API apps, that means web API or REST API. App Service Mobile Apps, that is mobile application. Azure App Service provides us high availability and global scalability of our deployed application in the Azure. It provides us the guaranteed 99.95% availability, and this is as per the SLA. Let us discuss about the scalability. App Service provides us two types of scalability, scale up and scale out. Scale up means adding more power to a node or virtual machine. Here we will be adding more CPU or ACU, more memory, more storage to a particular virtual machine. We will be adding more power to a machine, means making a node bigger. We can scale up by upgrading the pricing tier. In this example, two pricing tier S1 and P1 V2. If we want to scale up by upgrading from S1 to P1 V2, then we will be adding more ACU to the new node. In S1 there is 1.7 GB memory, but in P1 V2 there is 3.5 GB. So by upgrading, we can add more power, that is more CPU or ACU, more memory, more storage to a particular virtual machine or node. So this is all about scale up. Scale out is about increasing the number of virtual machines. Scale up was to adding more power to a particular virtual machine. But in the scale out, we are just adding more. We are increasing more number of virtual machines. Right? In the scale up, there was one virtual machine and we are adding more power by upgrading the pricing tier, where we will be adding more CPU, more storage and more memory. But here we will be adding or increasing the number of virtual machines. Now let us discuss about the Azure Resource Group. As you can see in the picture, Azure Resource Group holds or contains couple of Azure resources: Azure App Service Plan, Azure SQL Database, App Service Web App and Storage Block. All of these four Azure services are within the Azure Resource Group. As we were discussing, this is used for grouping of related resources. As per definition, Azure Resource Group is a container that holds related resources that share same lifecycle, permission, policies for an Azure solution. The Azure Resource Group stores the metadata about the resources. This stores only the metadata. Below are the runtime stack that Azure App Service support: .NET and .NET Core, Java, Node.js, PHP, Python and Ruby. In this video, we will be deploying and hosting .NET Core application. These are the languages Azure App Service support. This is as per the runtime stack: CSharp for .NET and .NET Core, PHP, Java, JavaScript, Node.js, Python and Ruby. Azure App Service also support DevOps, automated continuous integration and deployment, CI/CD. The repository can be Azure DevOps, GitHub, Bitbucket, local Git and many more. In the Azure portal, we will be showing you how it looks like when we deploy our application using Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. Now the application setting. In the left hand side screenshot you can see this is the app setting JSON of our application. So when we deploy the application in the Azure, we have to create similar setting in the application settings section under configuration. Very important thing to keep in mind that we have to keep the application setting value in the Azure key vault. After deployment in the application, all these application settings are considered as the environment variables. As you can see in the left hand side screenshot, there is a key called my key. But in the right hand side screenshot, you can see there is a key app setting underscore my key under the environment variables. Now let us discuss about some important features on a high level that Azure App Service provides us to Azure Web App. Azure App Service provides the authentication method using Azure Active Directory, Azure B2C, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and there are a couple of other identity provider also. Azure App Service is integrated with Visual Studio and the Visual Studio Code. That means we can deploy or publish our application from the Visual Studio to the Azure. It also provides us the access control IAM. By using this feature, we can give access to a user, group, service principal or managed identity to this Azure App Service resource. It also supports API management and CORS. This is used for the Azure App Service API apps, that is Web API. One of the important thing is monitoring the application after deployment. It provides us the application insight, logs, diagnostic settings. There are a couple of monitor tools also there in the portal. It also supports the web jobs. Web jobs are nothing but the Windows service or Windows jobs that can run on the same app service plan on which the Azure App Service web app run. The application insight. This is very important features of the Azure App Service. By definition, it says application insights helps you detect and diagnose quality issues in your apps and helps you understand what your users actually do it. So these are some important parameters in terms of chart, field request, server request and the availability. Now most important thing is the Azure App Service plan, that is the hosting plan, and the hosting plan determines our pricing. App service require app service plan to run. An app service plan is a set of compute resource for a web app to run. This provides the physical infrastructure or the compute infrastructure to run a web app. That means this provides compute memory and the storage. App service plan provides us a virtual machine instance in a particular region defined by a pricing tier. Now let us go to the Azure portal to create the Azure App Service web app as well as the App Service plan. After that, we will publish our .NET Core application to the Azure using Visual Studio. Now I am in the Azure portal. Let us first create a app service. So to do that, we can click on the create a service and search the web app. Here web app. Alternatively, we can search the app service here, app services, and we can click on the add button, and here we can create the app service, create web app. Both are same. Okay. So first we need to choose the subscription. As I have only one subscription, pay as you go. So this is selected by default. Next, let me select the resource group. This is already created. Now let me give the web app name. As I will be deploying this application, this .NET Core application, just I am giving the same name here. I will be publishing code. I will not publish any Docker image. Here the runtime will be .NET 5 because my application is in .NET 5. Let me show you here the properties. This is because the target framework of my application is .NET 5, .NET 5.0. The region is Central US. Now let us see the things. This is the region and this is the app service plan. In the app service plan, there is also a region, Central US. Here we have selected Central US. That is why the Windows plan is also in the Central US. That means app service plan region is also in the Central US. Here our virtual machine will be created. Now let us change this, East US. See the plan location is changed, East US. Now let us change this to Germany West. This becomes the Germany West. Because both should be same. This region is where our application code will be deployed. And this region is where our virtual machine will be provisioned. As our code will be deployed in that virtual machine, so both regions should be same. That is why whatever region I am selecting here, same is reflected here. In the Central US, I have already created one app service plan. So that's why when I selected Central US, the free plan is selected here. This is free F1, shared infrastructure. Now let us see this plan. Here we can search app service plan, app service plans. Yeah, see, free app service new plan F1, free app service new plan. This was in the central US. Because this plan is already created in this region, so that's why this is selected. If you want to create one new plan here during creation of web app, so we can also create that by creating the new. Basically we need to click this one. Here we can create the new plan. Now let me change this location to create a new plan here. See, this is now asking us to create the new plan. Here we can change the SQL size. So basically what I am trying to mean, we can create the app service plan during web app creation, right? We can create here also. Alternatively, we can also create independently. We can also create it separately. So to create it separately, we can just search the app service plan and we need to click here, add button. This is the create app service plan window. Here we have to provide the resource group, app service plan name, operating system, location of the app service plan. Location means where our virtual machine will be created, and this is where we need to provide our pricing there. See, this is SQL size. SQL size. Same is here, SQL size. So we can create the app service plan separately and use that plan during web app creation, or we can also create the app service plan during web app creation. As I have already created the free app service plan, so I am using that here. Now let me show you the pricing tier. We have to create the change size. See, this is for the dev and test, this is for production, this is for isolated, advanced, networking and scale. See, for the POC or the testing purpose, we can use only the free version, that is F1. F1 is free, shared infrastructure, 1 GB memory, and there is the limitation of the usage, 60 minutes per day. This is free. Now D1. D1 is chargeable. There is a charge. See, for the F1 and the D1, there is no dedicated virtual machine. The application will be hosted in the shared infrastructure. In the both pricing tier, this is saying the shared infrastructure. But in the B1, see, there is the dedicated compute resource. That means the dedicated virtual machine will be provided. ACU, Azure Compute Units. Basically, the app service plan basically provides us the infrastructure, memory and the storage. And B1 onwards, there is the scale out option. We can manually scale up to 3 instances. Now let us go to the production. In the production, you see H1, P1, V2, P2, V2, P3, V2 is there. All are chargeable. For the production pricing tier, there are a lot of extra feature. Custom domain, auto scale up to 10 instance. There is a staging slot, daily backup, traffic manager usage, and the storage size is also higher. So app service plan basically determines our pricing for the deployment. So for the testing purpose, we can use the F1. Okay, now let me go to the central US where I have already created the app service plan. Now let me go to the monitoring. In the monitoring section for the application insight, we cannot enable the application insight because the yes checkbox is disabled, because this is saying application insights codeless monitoring is not supported with your selection of subscription runtime stack operating system. Okay, because this is because we have selected the runtime stack as .NET 5. Till now .NET 5 does not support application insight. Now if we change this to .NET Core 3.1, see, now the application insight is enabled. This is yes. If we change this to .NET 5 early access, this is now disabled. Okay. Now let me go to the review and create. This is resource group. This is my application name. We will publish code in the .NET 5 framework. Yeah. Now app service plan. This is my app service plan. This is operating system. This is the location where the VM will be created. This is free plan, shared infrastructure, right? Now let me create this. Now the deployment is in progress in this particular resource group. Yeah, now the deployment is completed. Let me go to the resource. In the overview tab, we have the status. Now the status is showing as running. This is now running live application. This is the location where our application is deployed. Now let me browse this URL. This is our deployment URL. This is our application. This is our URL where our code will be deployed. Right? Basically, we have not published any code to this app. After publishing this application, we will be browsing this URL. Okay. And the app service plan is free one, right? This is free F1. Now let us go to the activity tab. This is where everything will be show basically what we do with the app service. We have just created the app now. Now let us go to the access control. Access control is where we can provide or grant access to the resources to the different users, group or the service principal. And we can give access by clicking the add role assignment. Here we have to select the role. Here we can select the user group or the service principal to which we are giving access. And here we can search the email address. Okay. Access control decides to whom we can give access to this particular Azure resource, that is app service. Now let us go to the diagnosis and solve the problem. App service diagnostics help us to indicate how our application is performing. We can diagnose issue, we can discover how to improve our application. So this is the proactive measures that taken by the Microsoft Azure. Now let us go to the quick start. This section help us how we can deploy our application in the Azure. This is for our quick start tutorial, right? So quick start tutorial is there for ASP.NET, Java, Node.js, PHP and the Python. Now let us go to the deployment center. Yeah, this section help us to create the CI/CD pipeline, continuous deployment, right? So we can use the Azure repo, GitHub and the Bitbucket, and there are couple of repo also. As I will be deploying this manually, so here I cannot show you how it look like when we perform on CI/CD, when we deploy using CI/CD. But I have already deployed my application using the Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. Now let me show you that how it look like. See, this is my one of the application that I have deployed using CI/CD. Once we deploy our application using Azure DevOps pipelines, this is how deployment center screens looks like. See, the build is from the Azure DevOps pipeline. Build is from the Azure DevOps pipelines. This is the source, Azure repo, Azure repository, and the version control is TFS Git. And this is the project name. This is deployed from the master branch. The repository is not showing because I have deleted the repository. So that's why this is still loading. This is the deployment history, CI/CD history, deployed successfully to the production. This is the version, this is the build number, this is the release number. So this is how it looks like when you deploy our application using the Azure DevOps pipeline. Now let us go to the main application. Now let us see the configuration. In the configuration section, we have application setting, general setting, default documents and path mapping. In the application setting, we need to create the same setting what we had created in the app setting.json for the connection string and for the other custom key and value pair. We need to create the same here. For the key value, we need to create the application setting by clicking the new application setting. Here we need to provide name and value, that is the key value pair. Okay. Next, for the connection string, we need to add the connection string here. And here we need to provide what kind of server is. Okay. Now let us go to the authorization and authentication section. Authentication and authorization. This is saying anonymous access is enabled on this app service app. Okay. The users will not be prompted for login. So to create the app service authentication, we need to enable this. Here this is showing a lot of options. First one is the Azure Active Directory, Microsoft account, Facebook account, Google, Twitter, everything. That means we can create the authentication by using this identity provider. There is a lot of option. Now let us go to the custom domain. See, this is saying please click here to upgrade your app service plan to assign custom hostname of your app. As I am using the free version, so I cannot use the custom domain. So to use that, I need to upgrade. That means scale up. Okay, now go to the scale up section. If I want to scale up my application, means scale up the environment, scale up the virtual machine, then I need to upgrade it from F1 to D1 or V1 or the production pricing tier. Now I am using the F1 pricing tier. So to upgrade, either I have to click V1 or the other pricing tier and click the apply. So basically this is how our scale up things works. Now let us go to the scale out. Scale out means we need to create more virtual machine. This is saying auto scale is currently not available for the resource. The resource pricing tier might have been changed. So this is saying we need to upgrade it to the higher pricing tier to get the scale out activity. Means we need to provide at least V1 pricing tier to create the more instance. Now let us go to the web jobs. Web jobs is used to run the script or the exe as a Windows service, and this runs in the background. So when our web application will be running on an app service plan, our web jobs will be also running in that app service plan also. Now let us go to the app service plan. This is showing the app service plan our current application is running on. There are couple of tools are there, development tools. There is a console, advanced tools is there. Now let us publish our application. I am in the Visual Studio. So to publish this one, I need to right click in the project and publish. Target is Azure Cloud. Next, Azure App Service Windows, and there is the other options are also there. Azure App Service Linux, Container, Registry, Azure Virtual Machine. But we'll be publishing our code to the Azure App Service Windows. Next, I am using this resource group Azure Data RG, and this is our application that we have created. MVC core demo web app. Finish. Now this is our site URL. This is what we have created, right? Now let me publish this. Clicking on the publish button. This will build our application, create the compiled code and publish to the Azure. This is showing publish succeeded. Now this is published, right? Now let us check our controller and the index page. Home controller and index, right? This is our application. This is privacy. This is the index page. This is the welcome. This was our index page, index.html. Now let us make some changes and deploy again. Welcome to Azure Apps Service. I have saved this and publish again. Now the publish is succeeded. This is showing welcome to Azure App Service. Right? Azure App Service. I have just changed this one in the index page. Welcome to Azure App Service. Now let us see the overview section. Here see there is some data in 7.72 MB, data out 749.21 KB. There is the request details and there is the response time. This is the response time. Okay, now let us see the activity log if something happened. This activity was created when we had created our application. These are created when we deployed our application. There is a publishing profile activity is there. Next, the website configuration update is there, right? This is the activity log that happened on this application. Please subscribe the channel now to get the similar kind of video regularly. And if it helps you, please like the video. And thanks for watching.